Picture a city street in 1978. The sounds are public property. You hear the rumble of traffic, snippets of conversation from strangers, the distant wail of a siren. Music, if you hear it at all, is communal. It spills out from a passing car's radio or a record store's open door. Now, picture that same street just 3 years later. The world looks the same, but it sounds completely different. On the subway, in the park, walking down the sidewalk, people are disappearing. They are vanishing into a private world, hidden behind a pair of iconic orange headphones. For the first time in history, millions of people are living their lives to the rhythm of a personal soundtrack. This wasn't the result of some grand plan or a calculated revolution. It was an accident. It started with one powerful man's simple request. He wanted to listen to opera on an airplane, and the solution to his problem would unintentionally change the sound of being alive. The story begins not in a boardroom, but at 30,000 feet. Masaru Ibuka, the co-founder of the Sony Corporation, was a man of immense vision, but he was also a man who loved classical music. His frequent business trips between Japan and the United States were long, tedious affairs. He desperately wanted a way to listen to his favorite operas during these flights. The problem was, in the late 1970s, portable audio was a contradiction in terms. The best option Sony had was a cassette recorder called the TCD5. It was a beautiful piece of engineering with high-fidelity sound. It was also heavy, bulky, and completely impractical for casual listening on a plane. Ibuka was tired of lugging it around. The problem was simple but profound. Technology could record sound, and it could play sound, but it couldn't do it in a way that was truly personal, truly portable. The world was filled with music, but you couldn't easily take it with you. This wasn't a market gap that focus groups were identifying. It was a personal annoyance for a single, very influential man. And at Sony, when Masaru Ibuka had an annoying problem, he turned to one person to solve it. That person was Nobutoshi Kihara. Within the halls of Sony, Kihara was less an engineer and more of a legend. Ibuka himself called him a godlike person. His reputation was built on an almost supernatural ability to turn an idea into a working prototype. His hands built Sony's first tape recorder and Japan's first transistor radio. When Ibuka brought him his problem, Kihara didn't see the need for a revolutionary invention. He saw the potential in a clever modification. He looked at another Sony product, a monocassette recorder designed for journalists called the Pressman. The Pressman was small, but it was designed to record interviews, not for high-fidelity music. It had a built-in speaker and recording circuits that added weight and complexity. Kihara's genius was in what he chose to remove. This is the core technical mechanism behind the Walkman's creation. He took the Pressman, ripped out the recording circuit, and removed the speaker. This immediately made the device smaller, lighter, and more power efficient. He then replaced the mono playback head with a stereo one and added a small stereo amplifier. In a single day, he had a working prototype. It wasn't an invention born from a blank slate. It was an act of brilliant simplification, a masterclass in seeing the potential hidden inside existing technology. He had created a device that did one thing, and one thing only: play music in stereo, just for you. He presented the modified Pressman to Ibuka, who was delighted. The problem was solved. But for Sony's other co-founder, Akio Morita, a much bigger idea was just starting. Akio Morita, the business mastermind behind Sony, saw something more in Kihara's prototype. He saw a product that could redefine how young people experienced music. He gave the order in February 1979 to get the device ready for a commercial launch. The reaction inside Sony was immediate skepticism. A tape player that couldn't record, it seemed useless. Who would buy it? The marketing department hated the name Morita had chosen, Walkman. It was a clunky Japanese-English construction. Morita himself had doubts, but he had a gut feeling. He famously said, "This is the product that will satisfy those young people who want to listen to music all day." His conviction was so strong that he even made a bet with the head of sales that the Walkman would sell more than 30,000 units in its first 2 months. But even Morita was worried about the social implications. Critics were already suggesting that such a device would make people antisocial, creating a generation of isolated narcissists. To counter this, Sony's engineers included a feature that seems strange today. The first Walkman, the TPSL2, had 2 headphone jacks. The idea was that 2 people could listen together, making it a shared experience. They also included an orange button labeled Hotline. This button activated a small microphone, dampening the music and allowing the user to talk to the person next to them without taking the headphones off. These features weren't just technical quirks. They were a direct response to a cultural fear. Sony was selling a device for private listening, but they were trying to convince the world it wasn't a tool for being alone. They were wrong. That was exactly what people wanted. The Sony Walkman TPSL2 went on sale in Japan on July 1st, 1979. The initial reception was lukewarm, so Sony's marketing team took to the streets. They gave Walkmans to young people and celebrities, letting them experience it for themselves. The strategy worked. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. The device didn't just play music, it transformed mundane experiences. Suddenly, a boring commute on a train became a scene from a movie, scored by your favorite album. A jog in the park became an epic training montage. The Walkman provided a soundtrack to the movie of your life, and people were instantly addicted. Morita won his bet. The Walkman sold over 30,000 units in its first 2 months, crushing the initial forecast of 5,000 a month. By 1983, cassette sales officially overtook vinyl, a seismic shift driven almost entirely by the Walkman. The aha moment for the world was realizing music didn't have to be an appointment. It could be a constant companion. This device also fueled the fitness boom of the 1980s. The number of people who reported walking for exercise jumped by 30% during the Walkman's peak. It made exercise less of a chore and more of an escape, and it turned the mixtape into a cultural art form, a carefully curated expression of identity you could now share and carry with you. The Walkman wasn't just a product, it was a new way to be in the world. But as Sony was celebrating its global triumph, a German inventor was pointing to a patent he filed 2 years earlier. The Walkman was a phenomenon, but its origin story wasn't as simple as Sony claimed. In 1977, a German-Brazilian inventor named Andreas Pavel had patented a device he called the stereo belt. His design was remarkably similar to the Walkman. It was a portable cassette player with headphones designed for personal, high-fidelity listening. Pavel had approached several electronics companies with his idea, including Sony, but was rejected by all of them. When the Walkman launched, Pavel saw it as a clear infringement of his patent. He began a legal battle with Sony that would last for over 2 decades. Sony argued that the Walkman was an independent invention, born from the separate ideas of its own executives. They pointed out that their device was a modification of the Pressman, not a new invention. The legal fight was long and costly for Pavel. It became a classic David and Goliath story, the lone inventor versus the corporate giant. Finally, in 2003, Sony agreed to an out-of-court settlement. The terms were confidential, but it was reported to be a multi-million-dollar payment. The settlement was a quiet admission that the idea of personal portable stereo wasn't Sony's alone. While Kihara had brilliantly engineered the device that conquered the world, Pavel had independently imagined its form and function years before. The story of the Walkman wasn't just about a moment of genius. It was also a story of parallel thinking and corporate power. A relic of a bygone era. Nobutoshi Kihara passed away on February 13, 2011. What would he say if he could walk down a city street today? He would see a world that is the ultimate expression of his accidental invention. He would see tiny wireless earbuds, practically invisible. He would see people with access to billions of songs, not just one cassette. As an engineer, he would marvel at the technology, the sheer power and miniaturization. But he would also notice something else. He would see that the features his team built to fight loneliness, the second headphone jack, the hotline button, they are gone. They have been replaced by their exact opposite, active noise cancellation. People now pay more money for better isolation. The very thing his bosses feared the device would create, a world of people tuned out from each other, became its ultimate selling point. The godlike engineer who solved a simple problem for his boss would have a haunting thought. He didn't set out to build invisible walls between people. He just wanted to bring music in. He never imagined he was giving the world a tool to shut everything else out. Thanks for watching Creators Arsenal. Stay curious.